Saturday in our neighborhood usually smells like coffee and cut grass. Today it paused on a sound so small that our dog heard it before we did. Ranger had been nosing the rosemary by the back fence, tail doing that steady windshield wiper thing he reserves for squirrels and delivery trucks. Then he stopped. One paw hovered midair. His ears tipped forward, and he leaned toward the slats as if the wood itself had spoken. From the shadowed roots came a single chirp, not a meow, not a cry for people. A short, bright note that seemed to land in the ribs more than in the ear. I set my mug on the porch rail and called him back by habit. He came, but he did not look away. Through the gap between two boards, I saw something that made the yard tilt. A small face, rounder than a house cat, with pale spots like thumbprints across the cheeks. Ears too big for the head, the body tucked low, a tight comma of fur the color of leaf litter. She watched us without blinking, sides lifting too quickly under a coat that did not hide the ribs. There was nothing theatrical about it, no tragic music, just a little animal who was trying very hard to be invisible and failing. Ranger sat at heel as if someone had told him it mattered. He did not whine. He did not scratch at the fence. He turned his head and looked at me, polite and serious. And in that moment, I knew the backyard had become a place where decisions counted. I eased him inside and slid the glass door shut. He lay down immediately with his chin on the threshold, eyes still on the slats like a sentry who has chosen a post for himself. The questions came in the simple order that fear makes. Is she hurt? Is the mother nearby? Did someone dump her? How long has she been here? I moved closer to the fence by inches, not because I thought I could help by looking, but because the human heart is a poor student of distance. She did not hiss. She did not run. She lowered her head to the dirt and let out another chirp, shorter this time, a sound that lasted less than a breath and still managed to say everything important. I am very small. I am not okay. I am not yours. Tyler came to the door with his phone already in his hand. We had watched enough nature clips to know the first rule. Do not touch. Do not feed. Call someone who knows what they are doing. He pulled up the state wildlife page and scrolled, thumb moving faster as his mouth read names. Wildlife control. After hours line. Local rehabbers. I stood in the square of shade at the fence and counted the kitten's breaths the way a person counts the seconds between lightning and thunder. The first number rang to a recording and a list of options. The second rang and dumped us to a voicemail that still had last month's holiday hours. The third line picked up and a tired voice said to send a text with a location pin and a brief description. Tyler did it with the economy of a person paying by the letter. Backyard. Bobcat kitten. Breathing fast. No visible blood. Quiet. Ranger. Inside. The reply came 3 minutes later and felt like a hand on the shoulder. Do not approach. Keep dog inside. Watch from window. We will advise. Inside. Ranger kept his post like the job had been his all along. When the kitten chirped again, he tilted his head, not toward the door but toward me, checking the rule. I sat on the floor beside him and felt his body try to be still. The house made its ordinary sounds, and they seemed unkind. The ice maker in the freezer knocked. A delivery van crept by with the kind of bass that rattles cabinet doors. Somewhere, a neighbor laughed on a speakerphone. The kitten's sides fluttered and then steadied, like a bird correcting itself on a wire. From the rosemary, she lifted her head and looked straight through the slats at the glass door where a dog lay like a stone and two humans pretended not to breathe. Her eyes were glossy amber, not pleading, not tame. She watched us the way a creek looks at a rock, noticing the shape but reserving the right to move around it. I do not know why she came to our fence. Maybe the rosemary smelled like water. Maybe the space felt like a den. Maybe the world had pressed hard in the night, and this was the only place that did not push back. The phone buzzed again. A licensed rehabilitator was on another call but texting through. Do not give food or water. Mother may return. If Kit is alone after dusk, send video for assessment. We will dispatch if needed. Tyler texted back that we would keep watch. We dimmed the kitchen lights and left the yard in evening color. Ranger settled his head more firmly on his paws. At the fence, the little body became a shape again, a leaf shadow among leaves. The ordinary Saturday waited in the front yard and we let it. In the back, the wild had made a request, not for a rescue selfie or a new pet, for something harder, gentle, careful. Not yet. We learned our first rule before sunset. Sometimes the kindest thing you do is wait. The rehab texted back that bobcat mothers often park their kits while they hunt. If a mother is still in the picture, she'll return at dusk or shortly after. Keep the yard quiet. Keep the lights low. Keep the dog inside. It felt like being told to hold still while the world sorted itself out. Ranger accepted inside like it was a job with a pension. He stationed himself at the glass door and watched the fence with the calm of a security guard who knows the manager is on the way. When the kitten chirped, he didn't whine. He looked at us to make sure we had heard the memo. I slid a note under the side gate for the neighbor who sometimes pops through to borrow basil. Wildlife in the yard tonight. Please text before entering. I added a smiley face because America runs on courtesy even when you are vibrating like a tuning fork. If you give a neighborhood an almost cute crisis, it will produce opinions. A next-door thread bloomed like a dandelion. Is it a bobcat or just a weird tabby? Don't touch it. My cousin Bottle fed a raccoon and now it does taxes. Someone suggested warm milk, which prompted 3 separate people to type some version of please don't. One practical saint posted a list of licensed rehabbers with highlighted numbers and wrote, "For the love of Flag Day, call these people and no one else." I liked them immediately. Our porch light stayed off. The kitchen dimmed to the kind of gold that makes you whisper. Ranger's breathing slowed until I could hear my own pulse in the quiet. Outside, the rosemary held its shape, and the shadow beneath it held still with it. Every so often, the kitten lifted her head and made that small hinge of a sound, and the yard seemed to lean toward the fence, as if listening could be a form of help. Dusk arrived the way it always does. One bird stops talking, then another, and then the mosquitoes make their case. We stared at the seam of light on the horizon like it owed us a sign. Somewhere down the block, a grill lid clanged, and a dad announced to the universe that burgers were ready. A siren muttered, and then thought better of it. The kitten did not move from her comma of leaves. Video if no mom by nightfall. The phone buzzed. Tyler shot through the glass. No flash, no sudden moves. A 30-second clip that felt like a small confession. The reply came with the authority that calms animals and humans alike. Alone, underweight, labored breathing. Will dispatch at first light. Do not attempt to contain. Close gates. Keep dog in. If she leaves, do not follow. We closed the side gate and checked the latch like an airplane safety demo. Ranger inspected each step and signed off with a single thump of his tail. A north breeze rolled through, cool enough to make me consider a blanket for a creature I wasn't allowed to touch. The rehab texted again, solving a problem I hadn't yet admitted out loud. Windbreak okay. Place object a few feet away to block direct draft, no closer. We set the blue recycling bin near the rosemary, angled so the breeze skimmed rather than stabbed. From inside, through the slats, the kitten stayed a shadow with eyes. At 9, our neighbor, Mrs. Beasley, rang to ask if we needed deli turkey for the kitty. She meant well. I thanked her, explained the no food, no water rule, and she pivoted like a champ. Do you want a thermos of coffee for the stakeout? 10 minutes later, a stainless steel miracle sat on our doormat with a post-it that read, "For the grown-ups, the cat gets the professionals. God bless the suburbs." The night found a rhythm. Ranger would sit, rest his chin on the sill, and then stand to look, as if the act of standing could hold the fence together. The kitten chirped less and breathed a little more evenly, or maybe we had learned how not to count too hard. A raccoon's striped tail floated along the top of the fence, curious but wise enough to keep moving. A moth the size of a leaf tried to romance our window. Somewhere around 11, Ranger got up, padded to his toy basket, and brought his favorite rope to the door. He laid it down gently and looked at me with the face he uses for guests. "Buddy," I whispered, "I know, but this one doesn't play tug." He sighed like a person and went back to his post. Midnight is when every house sound sounds like a decision. The refrigerator hummed its lonely hymn. The heater clicked and thought better of it. I brewed the Beasley coffee and decided it was the kind that could fix marriages. Tyler nodded toward the fence. The kitten had shifted just a little, changing commas for a semicolon, if we are going to be literary about it. She lifted her head, watched the slats, and then put it down again in a way that read as relief, not surrender. Dawn, pick up window 6:8 a.m., the rehab texted. Two-person team, unmarked SUV. We'll text when we turn onto your street. If she relocates, send PIN. Thank you for keeping this quiet. I typed that we'd be here. Ranger answered for all of us by not moving at all. At 2, the sky did that dark blue thing that makes you believe in oceans. Tyler dozed in a dining chair, hands folded like the world would behave if he kept them exactly so. I sat on the floor with my back to the couch and Ranger's shoulder against my knee, and for a moment I let the picture widen. A small wild animal had chosen our fence because it was a piece of the world that didn't argue with her being small and wild. We were being asked for restraint, not courage, for patience, not heroics. In a country that sells quick fixes aisle by aisle, this felt almost indecently grown up. At 5:42, the phone buzzed one last time before morning. Team en route. 40 minutes. Do not approach. I texted back a thumbs up and felt ridiculous about the cartoon hand, and also utterly grateful that we had a language for hope that uses tiny pictures. Ranger stood, stretched, and without being told walked to the hallway where his leash hangs. He sat beneath it and waited. Not for a walk, for a plan. The text came 5 minutes before sunrise. Team turning onto your street. Please keep dog inside. An unmarked gray SUV eased to the curb as politely as a church van. 2 people stepped out in field boots and soft voices. No logos, no drama. One carried a ventilated crate. The other, a towel and a coil of calm that seemed to lower the temperature of the yard. Good morning, the woman said, eyes on the fence slats, not on us. Thank you for keeping it quiet. We'll take it from here. She didn't ask to pet Ranger, didn't coo, didn't break the spell. She just asked, any movement overnight? We told her about the small shifts, the steadier breathing, the way the windbreak seemed to help. She nodded once, like a pilot hearing runway length in feet. She set the crate down, then did something I will remember forever. She waited. No fidgeting, no performance. Just a full minute of letting the yard become a place where a frightened animal might make one more good decision. Then her partner slid a thin board under the rosemary like a magician palming a card. There was no net, no dramatic lunge. The towel lifted, soft as a cloud, and in 2 motions the small body was inside the crate, dark and quiet again, the way stress asks for. Female, the woman said, not looking at us, looking at the breathing. Underweight, no obvious fractures, fast respirations, no food, no water from you, correct? We nodded so hard we looked guilty. Good. That probably saved her. She lifted the towel just enough to check gum color, said pale but responsive, and covered her again like a secret. Our neighbor, Mrs. Beasley, arrived on cue with a thermos and paper cups, whispering like we were in a library. For the grown-ups, she mouthed. The woman took the coffee and passed back a small fridge magnet that said, Wildlife Hotline, and nothing else. Thank you for not posting this online, she added, which made me flush, even though we hadn't. The internet is a reflex. Restraint is a choice. Ranger lay flat at the glass door, silent as a photograph. The woman noticed him then and gave the smallest smile. He's doing the most important job, she said. Boundary dog. He knows how to be near without being on. Ranger thumped his tail once, which is his way of saying, ma'am. They carried the crate to the SUV and slid it in like a sleeping child. The yard felt larger and smaller at the same time. The woman gave us the rules as if she'd written them on the palm of her hand. No visitors, no milk on saucers left at the fence. If mother shows up later, she'll move on. If not, that's our job now. Expect no updates until midday. If you hear nothing, that is good news. We do not name, she added gently. And you could tell she has to say that more often than she wishes. Names make humans do human things. End. It should have ended there, with the door closing and the SUV rolling away. But this is America, and someone will always ask if there is anything they can do, Tyler asked. The woman didn't sigh. She made a list. Secure trash can lids. Seal the gap under the side gate. Remind the block that poison for rodents climbs the food chain. Put this number on the fridge. Share it with people, not with platforms. The magnet clicked into place on our refrigerator, like it had been waiting for its whole life to perform that tiny act of purpose. Ranger paced the sliding door once, then sat as if his shift had ended and he was waiting for the next assignment. The rosemary bush looked suddenly ordinary again, which is to say, miraculous. Sunlight caught on the fence slats and tried to turn the night back into a story we'd tell at barbecues. We promised each other we would not do that. The SUV pulled away without a single theatrical gear change. The yard exhaled. I realized I had been holding my shoulders at ear level for 12 hours and dropped them a full inch. Tyler poured coffee into 2 cups and set one on the porch rail the way he had when this began. It steamed like a moral. The text that came just before noon was the most beautiful sentence a person can receive when they have fallen in love with something they are not allowed to love. Settled. Warm. Fluid started. Good reflexes, she hissed. That last word made us laugh out loud. Hiss means there is a line and she still knows where to draw it. Hiss means there's a wild animal inside the small, tired body, and it has not resigned its job. We stood at the glass and looked at a yard that had gone back to being a yard, except that it hadn't. Ranger nosed his favorite rope toy and placed it by the door again, just in case the universe needed to know we keep extras. Mrs. Beasley texted a photo of a hardware store aisle and asked which door sweep looked like it wouldn't embarrass her. The next door thread mysteriously stalled out after someone posted the hotline numbers and a firm, "Do not feed." At 2 o'clock, a second text arrived, more clinical and somehow more tender for it. Kitten approximately 10 to 12 weeks. Dehydrated. No fractures on palpation. Tick load addressed. We will pair with age. Mate if possible to prevent imprinting. No public interactions. It was the opposite of a Disney ending and twice as kind. We marked the magnets, sealed the gap, put out the trash on a new schedule, and taught ourselves to stop expecting the rosemary to produce a miracle every afternoon. The miracle had already happened. The world had asked for patience in a backyard built for impatience, and for once we had given it. Updates from the rehab arrived like postcards from a country where silence is a language. Midday. Settled and warm. Evening. Fluids tolerated. Grooming started. The next morning brought a one-line note that made our kitchen lighter by 10 pounds, paired with AgeMate to prevent imprinting. No photos, no hard-eyed emojis, just the sentence you write when the goal is competence, not applause. Ranger adjusted to a life in which his best trick was patience. He still patrolled the glass door like a TSA agent with perfect manners, but the urgency had drained out of his posture. He would glance at the rosemary, then at us, as if to confirm the boundary still held. We learned new habits too, the small domestic heroics that matter more than they look. The trash can got a lid that closed with a satisfying click. The gap under the side gate disappeared under a rubber sweep. A neighbor asked if mothballs keep wildlife away, and 3 houses answered in chorus, "Please don't." Someone on the block set out a bowl of water, just in case, and 6 minutes later put it away when the group text explained how a safe yard is sometimes an empty one. The rehab's second message was clinical in the kind way. Intake weight, hydration status, parasite load addressed, no fractures on palpation, alert when handled. Then the part that sounded like a promise: minimal human contact, masked feeding, evaluation for soft release when appropriate. Tyler read it out loud, stopping on the words that explained why there had been no photos. Minimal human contact, he said, like a spell. Let her stay wild. Ranger brought his rope to the door and set it down without looking at us. He still believed in offering. We thanked him every time as if he were donating to a cause. Mrs. Beasley wheeled her trash bin to the curb like a Brooklyn bouncer. Lids slammed. Reputation secured. The next door thread went quiet, except for one person who apologized for suggesting warm milk and was forgiven with 3 recipes for actual warm milk drinks that have nothing to do with wildlife. This is how a neighborhood learns. A week in, the rehab sent a longer note, still absent of drama. 2 kittens housed together, age-matched, eating well, hissing appropriately, hiding when approached, successful practice stalks in pre-release pen, no vocalizing for humans. They would be moved to a larger enclosure with more cover, more room to run, more places to be what their bodies were designed to be. Ranger listened to the email as if it had a scent. He rested his chin on the sill, eyes on the slats, as if he could see a different fence miles away. The humor that had kept us breathing began to return in small, decent ways. Tyler tried to frost cupcakes with Bobcat spots for a fundraiser table and invented a dessert that looked like a galaxy collided with a bakery. The PTA took over logistics like a professional pit crew. A sign-up sheet appeared with needs so unglamorous they felt pure. Bleach, towels, newspaper, heavy-duty zip ties. Every time someone suggested stuffed toys or squeakers, the rehab politely explained that wild kittens do not need toys that squeak the way human hearts think they do. They need distance, cover, meat, and the right to be unseen. At home, Ranger learned a new trick that no obedience class teaches. When the dusk chorus started and the yard slid from green to graphite, he would lie down with his back to the glass, not as a snub, not because he had lost interest, but because looking away can be a form of respect. He would listen without staring. He would be near without being on. When a raccoon tail went by, he flicked an ear and let the world make its own choices. The note that marked week 3 felt like the outline of a graduation speech. Weight on target. Stalking and pounce exercises successful. Fear response intact. No human imprinting observed. Evaluating sites for quiet release. No public announcements will be made. It was the opposite of social media, and it made us proud in a way that felt like growing up. We told exactly 3 people, and all of them were the kind who know how to keep something safe by keeping it small. One evening, when the cicadas were loud enough to make the windows hum, the rehab texted a video link that expired after 1 view. There was no music, no narration, just 2 young bobcats moving like secrets across a bed of straw. One crouched, another slid low. A pounce that was clumsy and then less clumsy. A rustle of leaves placed exactly where a teacher would have put them. When a human hand appeared at the edge to refill water, both kittens vanished into shadow with the speed of something rehearsed. That vanishing, more than the pounce, made me tear up. Vanishing is a survival skill too. Our yard kept teaching us. We learned that leaving a porch light off is an act of neighborliness to moths and migrating birds. We learned that a fence gap is a question you ask without meaning to. We learned that Ranger could hold a command called stay for as long as a story needs it, which is longer than you think. We learned that help looks boring up close, taking out trash on time, wiping up fallen seeds so rodents do not start economies under your bird feeder, saying no to poison that promises easy answers and hands your problems to a hawk. The last update before the silence was simple. Weather window looks good. Weight and behavior within release parameters. Quiet release scheduled at undisclosed location. No visitors. No location pins. Thank you for understanding. We wrote back that there was nothing to understand, only something to honor. Ranger set his rope down on the mat and we said thank you like we were closing a chapter with a handshake. That night, a shape moved along the top of the fence, and for a second my heart sprinted to conclusions. It was a possum the size of a loaf of bread. Feet careful, face serene. Ranger watched it go with professional interest and then lay back down. The rosemary swayed once and then settled like a curtain closing. Release day arrived, the way good news often does quietly, with no parade to jinx it. A message landed at 7:12 a.m. Weather window looks good, behavior within parameters, quiet release today, no visitors, no location pins, thank you for keeping it small. It felt like getting invited to a wedding where the bride is the sky and the right gift is staying home. We did what staying home asks for. Tyler printed the hotline numbers on 3 index cards and taped them inside the pantry, the garage, and the junk drawer, because emergencies have a sense of humor. Mrs. Beasley announced she was retiring poison like a bad boyfriend, wheeled a bag of snap traps out of her trunk like she was unveiling a new grill, and texted the block, "If you need help sealing gaps, I have a caulk gun and opinions." The PTA put towels and bleach on the same list as field trip forms. Ranger watched all of this with the polite interest of a citizen at a city council meeting who knows which way the vote will go. The rehab didn't send a play-by-play. They sent a sentence that made space instead of filling it. Release completed. Both kittens moved with confidence. Both disappeared on schedule. Disappeared on schedule might be my favorite combination of words now. I pictured 2 small bodies sliding into grass so tall it could keep 100 secrets. And for once I did not argue with the part of my brain that loves a close-up. Some love is better at a distance. That afternoon, the neighborhood did something deeply American and quietly heroic. We made a plan for boring stewardship. Trash night became trash hour. Nothing left out to invite a buffet. Bird feeders got tidy. Seed spills swept before they became rodent real estate. The HOA added one sentence to the newsletter: no rodenticide on common areas. Contact maintenance for snap trap boxes. The subject line of the email read, "A wild update." Not about the raccoon with tacos. And I didn't even want to know the backstory. Ranger, who used to imagine himself a squirrel cop, reinvented his job description. He learned to walk the fence line without advertising it. Nose low, tail neutral, a quiet perimeter check that said this yard respects the corridor behind it. Twice, he saw a shadow move along the top board: a possum, a cat without a collar, and both times he looked at me first. We said, "Leave it," like a prayer, and he did, which felt like winning in a way that doesn't require a trophy. A week later, a final note from the rehab. No further updates will be provided. Thank you for understanding. We did understand. The point was never to keep a wild thing in our story. It was to step out of hers. Still, the yard had opinions. At dusk, the rosemary made a shape out of shadow and memory. Ranger would take his place at the door and then turn his back to the glass, listening without staring, a reminder that attention can be generous or greedy, and we had chosen the generous kind. On a Saturday walk down to the Greenbelt, we found something better than a sighting. A sign that we lived in the right direction. Where the path bends by the cottonwoods, soft prints marked the mud. Small, round, with the faint suggestion of retractable claws not quite deployed. Ranger lowered his head and breathed in a paragraph. He did not pull. He did not perform. He read, then looked up at us as if to say, "You see it, right?" We did. The trail wasn't a postcard from our kitten, there's no such thing, but it was proof that the world was busy being the world without our commentary. That night, the porch stayed dark on purpose. The yard clicked into its nocturnal chorus and we let it sing without accompaniment. Somewhere a coyote yipped at a joke only coyotes get. Somewhere a moth made decisions based on the moon instead of our light bulb. The rosemary held its scent. Ranger placed his favorite rope by the door as if hospitality could be a habit, and then lay down with his back to the glass. He had learned the posture of respect. We didn't name her. We didn't keep her. We didn't turn the yard into a stage. We did the small, unphotogenic work of being good neighbors to a piece of the wild that brushes our fence and moves on. When people ask what happened to the bobcat, we say the truest thing we know. She left, like she was supposed to, and we stayed, like we were supposed to. And both of those were a kind of love. A few weeks later, we hosted the most low-key celebration a neighborhood can have. No bounce house, no banner. Just a folding table on the sidewalk, with a coffee urn, a plate of cookies, and a handwritten sign that said, "Thank you for choosing the slow way." People came by in Saturday clothes and told the same story 3 different ways. How they almost posted a photo. How they almost put out milk. How they almost did something that would have felt helpful and wasn't perfect. We laughed at ourselves gently. It felt like church without the pews. The PTA put a new line at the bottom of every event flyer. No rodent poison on campus or at home. Ask for snap traps and boxes if you need help. The HOA added a sentence to the landscaping rules about seed spills under bird feeders and lid-tight trash. Mrs. Beasley now travels with a caulk gun in her trunk, like a superhero whose power is weather stripping. Tyler designed a tiny sticker for our trash cans that says, "Keep it closed for the hunters above," and I swear the raccoons read it. Ranger got an unofficial promotion. The kids on our block printed him a certificate that said, "Boundary Dog, awarded for excellence in staying." We taped it to the fridge next to the rehab magnet, and he sat in front of both like a cop taking his oath. His best trick is still the one no one claps for. He knows how to be near without being on. Once in a while, someone asks the question people always ask. Do you think it was her we saw by the creek? We answer the way the rehab taught us to answer everything. Maybe, maybe not. If it was, she owes us nothing. If it wasn't, the world is still working. Either way, our job is the same. Keep the light off. Keep the trash shut. Keep the number on the fridge. If you find yourself with a little wildlife pressed up against your fence one day, start with the hard, easy things. Step back. Put the dog inside. Call someone with a license and a quiet voice. Do not feed. Do not water. Do not name. Help is not a selfie and love is not a leash. Love is a boundary and a magnet on a fridge, and a dog who will keep watch without being asked. We didn't keep a bobcat, we kept a promise. The promise was small and unphotogenic, and it changed our block anyway. Sometimes the story worth telling is the one where nothing dramatic happens because 100 tiny decisions went right.